We today are living at a time which holds characteristic of some very undesired words: compliance, submission, and inaction. Some may only just agree with tolerance, to endure pain or hardship, fortitude and stamina. But the premise of such stoic tolerance might just be a priori an inadequate response with all that could be known. What is not characteristic of the many today, or even really ever is what Ralph Waldo Emerson would call self-reliance. Before I start, make sure to sign up to my website thoughtsonthinking.org, where you can become part of our close-knit union of open-minded thinkers and to be notified of our newsletter. Self-reliance is a virtue which is never taught from the mouth of institution, unless you are lucky, because when you go to school you are never told to rely upon yourself. You are told to shut up, listen, copy-paste, because you are stupid and there to learn. There is probably nothing I learnt in school at a very young age that was as valuable as that realization. So, self-reliance sadly is only a virtue which you have to develop on your own, which is both good and bad, but conformity is also sadly a frame of mind which you grow into from the start. Conformity, by definition, is compliance with standards, rules or laws. Self-reliance, on the other hand, is reliance on one's own powers and resources rather than those of others. Now, we do conform to rules, standards or laws when we believe they are justified, when we are given the information that supports such rules. But how do we actually know when something is justified? How can we ever know the validity of so-called information given to us? The answer to that is never. You will never know the validity of information given to you through conformity, because we are simply conforming without upholding curiosity. The only way you can ever, or at least try to know the validity of given information is by acting upon self-reliance. Relying upon yourself to search for the truth, or at least the validity of so-called information which is put in the place to support given rules, standards or laws. I quote from Emerson, "Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Accept the place the divine providence has found for you, the society of your contemporaries, the connection of events. Great men have always done so and confided themselves, childlike to the genius of their age, betraying their perception that the absolute trustworthy was seated at their seat, working through their hands, predominating in all their being. And we are now men, and must accept in the highest mind that same transcendent destiny, and not minors and invalids in a protected corner, not cowards fleeing before a revolution, but guides, redeemers and benefactors, obeying the almighty effort and advancing on chaos and the dark." End quote. In an age of misinformation, it is very difficult to be self-reliant, to rely on yourself, to search for and try to know the truth. But it will be known that a lot of truth is never placed in the light, but placed to remain in the darkness. And those are the places in which you need to shine a light, to investigate the ignored material, to understand and comprehend a holistic reality, not a conformist reality of one-sided interpretation and intention. I quote, "I am ashamed to think how easily we capitulate to badges and names, to large societies and dead institutions. Every decent and well-spoken individual affects and sways me more than is right. I ought to go upright and vital, to speak the rude truth in all ways." End quote. To be a person, an individual, the most sacred part of you is the integrity of your mind. If you denounce integrity, then you denounce your entire being as a whole. That is your sole purpose, to not denounce your integrity. I quote, "Whoso would be a man must be a non-conformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your mind. Absolve you to yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world." End quote. If the conforming power says it is only of goodness, you need to explore why it must be of goodness. The conforming nature of the people will have no room for exploration out of curiosity and suspicion. And if you do not explore, then you are not a man, or more specifically, you do not hold within you the logos, which in religious, Western philosophy and psychology simply refers to meaning ground, the word, speech, account, discourse, opinion. In classical Greek, it would refer to universal divine reason. The logos is the transcendent function, which is of unchangeable truth, which you can embody and express upon the world. A conformist does not have this ability because they are not using that inner mental power, or at least not as of yet. But what can this conformity do? In Emerson's fine words, it is this, I quote, "The objection to conforming to usages that have become to you is that it scatters your force, it loses your time and blurs the impression of your character. Under all these screens, I have difficulty to detect the precise man you are. And of course, so much force is withdrawn from your proper life. But do your work, and I shall know you. Do your work, and you shall reinforce yourself. A man must consider what a blind man's buff is this game of conformity." End quote. When you do question reality, when you expect more is being played behind the veil of supposed truth, the world in most cases start to treat you differently. As most are conformists and deniers of exploration, the world, as Emerson says, whips you with its displeasure. I quote, "For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure, and therefore a man must know how to estimate a sour face. The bystanders look askance on him in the public street or in the friend's parlour. If this aversation has its origin in contempt and resistance, like his own, he might well go home with a sad countenance. But the sour face of multitudes, like their sweet faces, have no deep cause, but are put on and off as the wind blows and a newspaper directs." End quote. So today I hope my message, or Emerson's, comes to you with good intentions as always, that you take to heart his vital message, and that people rely upon themselves for unearthing knowledge, searching for truth in troublesome times of confusion and misguided intentions, and that people independently question what is preached so that we can all investigate with an open mind. As Emerson says, "Trust thyself, every heart vibrates to that iron string." End quote. And as of Rousseau, man is born free and he is everywhere in chains.